am an ENFJ, but the E is kind of like 51%. So it's like half E, half I. Mm-hmm. What about you?
I am an INFP, but the IE and the P and J are
like
all
50-50?
right about in the middle. Yeah.
Well, if you have no clue what we are referring to, we're going to get into it in this episode because today we're discussing, are personality tests worth it?
Let's talk about it.
Welcome to Net with Lizzy and Lissa, where we analyze hidden costs and empower you to make your own damn decisions in life. Each episode covers a different facet of life, and at the end of each episode, we each give our takes on whether we think something is net positive or net negative.
I'm Lizzy, a strategist and consultant with almost 20 years of experience in finance and investing.
And I'm Lissa, a personal finance expert and a certified financial planner. We're best friends who talk about money,
and everything else.
And everything else, Liz.
Sorry.
Are personality tests worth it?
First up, running the numbers on personality tests.
Over 2 million people take the official Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, the MBTI, every year. It is a popular personality assessment that sorts people into 16 types based on how they perceive the world and make decisions. This is the one that I was referring to when I said that I'm an ENFJ.
A 2017 survey from the Society for Human Resource Management found that about 1/3 of companies use personality or behavioral assessments when hiring for executive roles, and nearly 28% use them for middle management too.
When it comes to corporate assessments, Leaders.com reports that over 80 million people worldwide take some form of a personality test every year, fueling a global industry worth more than $2 billion.
And it's not just the paid ones, even free online quizzes are shaping how people think about their careers, relationships, and their sense of self.
Well, we know there's more to life than numbers and statistics, so let's talk about it. Are personality tests worth it?
All right, everyone's gonna know where I stand by the time we get to the end of this.
Really?
I love personality tests. They're like kryptonite for me. Like the concept of like doing this little thing and then getting a profile and understanding more about yourself, it just speaks so perfectly to how my brain works and my psychology that I've kind of always been that way, and I'm sure I've done most of them a million times, and I can also understand the criticism of it, but I still enjoy the process.
That's interesting. I can see that because it does provide some structure, and it has an element of reflection, which are things that I think help you. You have ADHD, so sometimes structure helps you.
Yep.
And then in terms of reflection, you do a lot of self-reflection. And so it's like you answer some questions, and then what's reflected back to you is a take on you. And I can see that being beneficial for someone who likes to do reflection.
Yeah, it's funny. Actually, I haven't dug into this, in therapy, but I'm sure there's a root there because I can think back to when I was a kid and trying to understand or having some perception of like the roles people play in the world.
Yeah.
And sometimes you see this in a very like prescriptive sense, like in, what's that movie where they all go to detention in high school from the 80s? Breakfast Club.
Oh, yeah, Breakfast Club.
Where it's like the jock and but I think I was always trying to figure out where I fit and what my identity was. And so it made a lot of sense that I ended up going into branding, which really that's the whole premise of it, is what role do you play, how do you define your identity?
Yeah.
And so that's always been a very deep interest of mine.
That's so interesting. Well, okay. You're kind of giving away your 20 cents
I told
already,
you.
right? But so
it.
let me play some devil's advocate here.
Okay.
I want to touch on like some of the reasons I've heard of why people roll their eyes at them and think they're stupid or whatever, because it puts you in a box. It says that like every single person in the world can fall into one of these, one of 16, right? Now, rather than being one of 7, 8 billion, you're one of 16.
For sure.
And I think I think for some people, it takes away what their sense of self is. Like they get to define what they are versus this thing telling them, well, you're this kind of person.
Right.
When, you know.
That's so interesting, like psychologically, when you think about like our human needs that, you know, every human has, because for that, a different person, that same thing could say, I belong.
Yeah.
I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, a completely shunned individual.
Yeah.
I am one of these 16
I'm not
people.
Number 17 that's an alien.
There
I'm
are
one of
others
16.
like me, and so others will understand me. So it's just two sides of the same coin.
Okay, well, how about this one? So Enneagram is another popular one. It shoots out one of how many types? I don't even know.
Nine
types.
9, yeah.
So you do this assessment, and then you're either a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. And I remember I did it one time, and I got a 3, which is you're an achiever. Mm-hmm. And I remember a friend or someone saying, oh, that makes sense. Because like, I don't think they called me an overachiever, but you know, I was always primed for success, like, you know, good grades, good college, good job, everything. I was voted most likely to succeed in high school and in middle school. And so when someone said that comment, I was like, damn, is that all I am to people? Is like the achiever or the overachiever, and all I want is success, and that's all I'm driven by. And I didn't identify with that.
Right. And it can be an oversimplification, right? Because that may be one part of you, but you contain multitudes, and you have so many different levels. I'm not saying
that doesn't exist, like that exists, but I didn't want to be defined by that. And that's what this thing told me. And you know, I think I did that at work, and we'll get to the work and career part of it. But I'm pretty sure I did that assessment at work, and it was like, the whole point was, the more you know about yourself and the more you know what buckets you fall into, let's talk about your strengths and how you can utilize them at your job to perform well and to make more money and all that good stuff. So it had a good intent, but it was like, dang, but I don't see myself as that. Like, how can I be one of the other numbers? Like, what can I change about myself, or what answers can I change to the assessment to change who I am?
Well, and I think it's interesting that you said that with the achiever, because I think another potential cost is that on some levels, society places more value on some types than others, or like even just thinking a capitalistic system, right? And so I think a lot of people might aspire to be that, because that, you know, they may perceive that says good things about them, that they're going to be successful in life, and you have the opposite experience. And so I think that's some of the dynamics that are labeling. And it is a cost, for sure.
Okay, so have you ever done a personality test of some kind and got a result that you were upset about, or like, now that's not me?
I have. I think I have a specific mindset around it where, because this is something I've always kind of been interested in, it's more like exploratory. Like, oh, let's see what comes out of this. I have always felt like I'm a whole lot of contradictions. Like, I'm introverted and extroverted. I am organized and also not at all. I like structure and I hate structure. So I think that's one reason it helped me kind of understand things about myself. But also I recognize, like, these are actually all a spectrum. And usually I can see myself in a few different things, or as I'm doing the questions, I'm like, well, if I answered that one differently, I would have gotten this. And I'm able to handle that nuance with myself, because I think they're fun. I have had a couple where, like, I didn't really identify it. I don't think I've had one that it bothered me. But another cost I can think of is over-identifying with it. So sometimes you might say, well, I'm not like that. I'm this person. I'm not like that. And that can inform your choices if you over-identify with a prescribed identity or an archetype and think, you know, oh, well, I don't have to deal with those things. That's not my strength, right? Or I don't have to develop my weaknesses. And that was an interesting mindset, thinking of the career one. There's one called Strengths Finder that's really, really popular. Yeah.
StrengthsFinder.
StrengthsFinder.
Have you done that one?
I have. I can't remember the results, although I have them.
Yeah.
And then another similar one, I think it's actually a related evolution called Standout.
Yeah.
That one, doing that for me was actually like fairly transformative. Like it was really illuminating. These ones were much more detailed. But it came along with the mindset from organizational psychology that you're better off sharpening your strengths than trying to compensate for your weaknesses. That's going to be much more effective in the long run. And that was like a like mind blown moment for me.
Interesting. So you mentioned the Clifton StrengthsFinder. Yeah. So I actually got access to this. God, how did I get access to it? Oh, I was part of some mentorship program where I got paired with a mentor. And it was this nonprofit organization, and I was a mentee. So they allowed us all to create a login. Like they had a license where, they paid for it, and they allowed us to all do the StrengthsFinder to learn more about ourselves and how we can be leaders. And so it was cool that we got to do it for free. Yeah. I don't have to pay for it or anything, because some of these you can't just rock up on the internet and find it.
Yeah.
And
it's like enterprise only.
You have to actually take it through your job or pay for it or something. And so I got the opportunity to do it, and I was really excited about it. And then when they sent me my results, when I went through it, I felt like there was nothing I didn't know already.
Interesting.
And I was like, dang, people pay money for this stuff and I don't know if that's because I'm at a point in my career already where I have a lot of awareness.
Yeah.
Or maybe this particular assessment didn't do anything for me, but I was just like, yeah, I already know that. Like, okay,
that's
now what?
really interesting.
Yeah.
But that didn't feel, someone could have that same experience and that feels validating. Like, I'm in the right place.
Oh, like I already know this about myself. Yeah,
but I was
more like, I'm curious to learn some new things.
Right.
And what are my strengths and what can I, how can I use those strengths? And you know what it was? It gave me stuff I already knew. And then if you wanted to unlock more, like to dig into what you can do with it, it was like another tier, I think, that you had to pay for.
That's annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a commercialization.
And a lot of them have that, for sure. That made me think, though, when you talked about the achiever, hypothetically, I'm not saying this was your case, but like that could still be useful information. If you're like, okay, this is where I'm at now, or this is how people perceive me now. Yeah. But I don't want that to be how people perceive me.
Let me do.
Or play up these other things, right?
Right.
Make sure that other people know these other sides of me because I don't want to be pigeonholed. Yeah,
that's true.
So, it could be valuable information, but a lot of it is your mindset.
That's a good call out. Because so another one that I remember taking at work years ago was this one called True Colors. It was like a team offsite, and as part of our offsites, part of it was like we're doing work stuff and, planning for the next year or whatever projects that we were working on. And then part of it was icebreakers, but also like exercises to get to know ourselves better. And one of them was an assessment called True Colors.
Okay.
I can't remember the gist of it. I just remember that you either ended up being like a red, blue, yellow, or green. Like it was one of these. I have to look into what it was again.
That's interesting just because people already have emotional associations with colors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One, I don't remember what color I ended up. I think I remember not liking the color I got because it wasn't my favorite color.
Right.
But something I remember too was that like I was the same color as a couple of people, and I was like, dang, I don't see myself as like them at all.
I could imagine I would have that experience.
Yeah.
I can't think of times when I've taken it with a group, to be honest. I did the StrengthsFinder through my job, but I think it was like a leadership thing or an opportunity that it wasn't all of us.
Yeah.
I did then and have been in positions where I've encouraged my team to do them. But that was more for me as a manager. It's really helpful to understand some of those things of like, here's an example I've used in business. Like for me, money alone is not very motivating. I need to enjoy the process or the challenge. And if you want to encourage me to do something or keep me engaged, that's the way to do it. For a lot of other people, money is highly motivating.
Yeah.
And so if you say like, hey, the first person to get here gets a bonus, that will work for those people, not for me. So for management or, you know, structuring a team, building culture, understanding some of those things can be really useful. And you don't always get that, or it can take a long time to get that in the course of business.
Yeah.
So I've used it that way, but I've never had to look around and be like, ew.
Yeah. Interesting. So this has made me think of like how much do these assessments, these personality tests actually move a business forward? Because obviously they cost money. I actually don't know anything about how much they cost a company to license the test.
I really don't know cost.
Yeah, I don't know that, but is it worth paying for to have your employees all do an assessment and know a little bit more about themselves when you don't know for sure that the employees are actually going to take that and do something good with it?
I don't know the cost when we did it. It was part of like a team building exercise that I think, now this may be my bias because I was part of planning it, I think made people feel like we were more invested in them as human beings than just as the work product that they, output. And we're more interested in like helping them develop their career, which I truly was.
Yeah.
And understanding like how they're unique. So I think it did a good amount like for the culture of my team.
Yeah.
I hope it did. And, you know, it did give me some insight, but I don't know that there's like a monetary cost to that.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk through some of the costs. So cost of taking a personality test for an individual. Sometimes you can find these for free online, but sometimes you actually have to pay.
Yeah. Or sometimes they like hook you and then you can't really see the results.
Speaking of, okay, this is a tangent, but I think like someone had sent Alan a personality test? It was something about like, it was some kind of personality test about like your love language, maybe. It was love languages related, something like that. It was in that arena. And as soon as I saw it, I answered a question or two and I was like, oh wait, no, they're going to require my email address or something to send me the results, if not more. And then Alan was like having fun answering the questions anyway, because the questions are self-reflective a lot of the time. So he was having fun going through all these pages of questions, and it took him like 15 minutes. I remember we were eating sushi or hand rolls. We were out and he took it and he finally got to the end and he was like, oh man, it's going to cost me $1.99.
Yeah,
so
I've totally done that.
Relatively cheap. And I'm like, he's like, oh, it's only $2. Should I do it? And I'm like, I don't know, because if it's only $1.99, something seems sketchy about it, because I feel like they're going to try to upsell you on something else after. Because they're not going to make a profitable business on getting
that's
$2
a
from
tripwire product. Is what it's called.
Yeah. So that I was like, I don't think this is worth it. This is stupid. Like I can tell you what. At this point, I was pissed. I was like, I could tell you what your love languages or personality is because I'm your partner. Like,
right. Okay, that sparked two thoughts for me. One, a potential cost of these is if you are not self-aware enough to know the truth about yourself, you're going to get an inaccurate result and it will reinforce those beliefs about yourself.
Yeah.
So it can actually push you further away from real clarity.
Yeah.
If you're not being honest with yourself, or if you just don't know yourself.
Yeah.
And so that's a challenge. But the other one is sometimes they'll have personality tests, not so much the professional ones, but it'll be like, oh, you're compatible with this type.
Oh, yeah.
And that can unconsciously or sometimes consciously inform how you're evaluating partners.
Yeah. Like you limit yourself because of that result.
Yeah. Or you can become like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I was going to bring this up separately, but horoscopes could be their own topic,
Yeah.
but are very similar
Yeah.
to these personality
We got to do
profiles. That's its own episode.
We got to do an episode.
But
on
you definitely see that. And
Yeah.
I can think of like, I've dated so many Tauruses.
Yeah.
But is that real?
Yeah.
Or is that just something in my head, you know?
Well, that's so interesting that you bring up horoscopes because it's a thing, right? Well, it's a thing for the people who it's a thing for, right?
Yeah.
Some people don't give a damn.
Yeah.
But for the people who care, it's like, wait, I'm a Gemini, you're an Aquarius. Oh, we should be good friends, right? Like
Right.
that makes sense. It makes sense why we're friends. It's like confirmation bias sometimes.
Yes.
Right? Like,
Yes.
or it's
And
the
power-
opposite.
And the power of suggestion, right?
Yeah.
You're a Gemini, you're like this. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I am
am like this.
And then you embody it.
Yeah.
And that may not be bad, but it's influential.
But I think that's similar. So I actually got confused. Like this 16 personalities thing is like, these are the archetypes that are in Myers-Briggs, but I think the assessments are actually slightly different. I could be
okay.
wrong. I remember taking the Myers-Briggs assessment in college.
Okay.
I think it was a thing as part of one of my classes. And I got ENFJ. And then later on in the future, this website popped up where I think you actually can do it for free.
You can, yeah. I've done it there.
And throughout like 20 years of doing these things, I've been 100% I've been one of two, ENFJ or INFJ.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting to me that like I've identified as that. I've met other ENFJs. Like Liz told me that she's an ENFJ, and I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense to me. Like it doesn't click for me that you're an ENFJ
Yeah.
when I know 3 other close friends who are ENFJs it makes more sense to me
Yeah.
that we have similar tendencies.
Right.
So like even then I'm like discounting what you
But
You have.
to your point, mine has changed.
Yeah.
So the first time I did it, or I just looked in my Gmail, it was from 2017. So 8 years ago,
Yeah.
I was ENFJ. And I remember always the E and the I are
almost 50-50.
almost equal.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes which is extroverted, introverted.
Yeah, for those who don't
Yeah,
know.
and
So
then-
each of the letters for the 16 personalities is one of two. So the first letter is either extrovert or introvert, E or I. The second letter, N or S, is intuitive, even though it's I. Yeah. The N for intuitive, I forget what the S is for.
Yeah, I don't remember the S.
The F versus the T.
Feeling or thinking
And then the P or the J is perceiving or judging.
or judging. Yeah.
So you switched on the extrovert, introvert, that goes back and forth for you,
Yeah.
as well as the perceiving and
Thinking
judging.
and feeling has always been close, and perceiving and judging I flipped. So now I'm more perceiving.
So Liz has 16 personalities,
Yeah.
basically. It could be
But
any
that's an interesting thing, though, when
Yeah.
you're kind of
cusp,
borderline.
on the cusp. Yeah. So interesting. Oh, so the ENFJ thing, I brought that up because when you said about dating with horoscopes, I remember when I used to be on dating apps back in the day, I don't think I ever put mine, but I noticed when people would put theirs on there, like, oh, I'm a ISFP or I'm a whatever. And then there's actually websites to tell you, like, would an ENFJ be compatible
Right.
with this? And then you read into it, like you said, because you think it's true, it's
Right.
factual.
And so I think at the root of these, you're trying to get some understanding about yourself and how you navigate the world. And then in that example, how you interconnect with other people and how compatible you'll be. So I think the sentiment isn't wrong,
Yeah.
but it's the idea that encapsulates all of you, that there isn't nuance within that, or that those are the most important things
Yeah.
in determining compatibility.
Yeah. And the funniest part about like this particular assessment is when you take this one, it's a lot of hard questions sometimes where it makes you pick between two statements and like which one you're closer to. And sometimes you're like, well, both statements are very true.
Right.
So am I like smack dab in the middle or do I lean slightly towards this one? And so it can change. If your answers change on a daily basis,
Right.
then your output is going to change also.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I am curious. I'm sure there have been studies on this. And I know, so I do have a friend who has a PhD in organizational psychology. She did tell me that most of these are like bullshit academically. However, the StrengthsFinder is very well respected. I took that and I respect her opinion. And I also think I find value in them.
Yeah.
For what I find that value in them for.
So do you think when they were created, like there wasn't a bunch of like scientists in a room like actually making sure it's like a legit assessment?
I think I don't know the origin of Myers-Briggs. I think it has like an academic origin.
Yeah.
But I think the science has evolved beyond that.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna misspeak, but I think there's something to like it has kind of been debunked, or like it doesn't hold up academically, but that doesn't mean that you can't identify. Right.
Okay.
So I think, not to jump ahead to horoscopes, I think of that similarly, of like there are a lot of people who are like, that's so stupid. Yeah. And I'm like, I can enjoy it for what I enjoy it for.
Right.
Not that it has to be true or not. It's like, I think there's something interesting in this, or it lends some insight, or I get some pleasure from identifying with this thing.
Yeah.
So why not?
Okay. That's a good call out, because I think some people, I've run into people who think like horoscopes are dumb and who think personality tests are dumb. Is like, oh, that doesn't describe me at all. Like whatever. Yeah. And to me, it's like, cool. That's fine. That's your opinion. That's your take. But also in the back of my head, I'm like, you just don't get it. Yeah. Whereas I'm like, well, I get it. So that's why it has value to me.
It's funny because I have that thing, and it happens all the time in dating with horoscopes, is like, oh, I've noticed a lot of men associate it with women liking them and being this frivolous, oh, it's not backed by any science. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
And if you don't have enough imagination or open-mindedness to understand why someone might enjoy this, that says a lot about you.
Yeah. And like, what is science anyway? Like has to be experiments run on this. Like if you read something and it rings true to you, like who cares?
Or gives you some insight or gives you some comfort.
Yeah. All right, see,
wonderful.
Look at you trying to sway me on this.
I know.
All right, let me think of what are other costs to taking personality tests. I guess the primarily is if you have to pay for them in any way, right? There are a lot of scams out there.
Yeah, definitely.
That are like these made up ones online that are like, oh, we'll tell you which.
And there's so many now.
Yeah, which type you are of this. Just put in your email or pay $1 or $5 or whatever. So there's, small monetary costs. Time, because some of these assessments take like...
Some of them really do.
Yeah.
I swear I did the same one or from the same company as the one Alan did.
Yeah.
And I don't think I paid for it.
But it was a lot of questions.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was like, this is an investment. And usually I'm like, okay, I'll give them my email at the end. I didn't think I was going to have to pay at the end.
Or like by the time you get to the end, you're like, dang, I already put some
I know.
Some
they know what they're
time.
Doing.
Yeah, it's like, I already put in 30 minutes. I might as well pay $2 to see what this is.
Actually like a very smart business tactic, but yeah.
Okay. Oh, speaking of, this is another tangent. Speaking of business tactics, like I want your thoughts on brand archetype quizzes quizzes, because I actually wanted to make one for my business as a lead magnet where I can tell people like, you're this type of financial person. Yeah. However, I kept getting in my own head about doing it because I felt like, I wasn't doing research. I was just making stuff up that I felt was true. So I haven't done it yet. But what do you think about those types of quizzes?
So from a branding standpoint, brand archetypes are rooted in psychology. They're based on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and like some inherent personalities and roles that you see throughout human history. So for example, the most famous one is the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. This is the same. They're all kind of pieces of the same pie. And so they don't just apply to brands, but you typically see businesses strategically play up a certain identity, the role that they're going to play. So the hero would be like a Nike or a democratizer is one of them, the magician.
Yeah.
They feel, the idea behind them is that without even saying it, there are things that are familiar to people.
Yeah.
That are universal across humanity because of storytelling. And if you can get your business to share those characteristics and fill that mold, it's going to be a lot more readily accessible to people, more memorable, all of those things.
Yeah.
They're automatically going to know where to place it. Kind of like I mentioned earlier, like the jock, the cheerleader.
Yeah.
And that's like a psychological function that people use to categorize information. The flip side of it is stereotyping.
Yeah.
You know, but that's actually how our brains work in order to take in lots of new stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, these key in on that. I've used them extensively. When I would do a brand identity for someone, I would often include their brand archetype if it really lended itself. I had the quiz on my website for a long time.
Yeah.
So I think they're helpful for people who are new to something to orient themselves. And so I think it could be worthwhile in your business to say, for someone to say, I don't even know, I've never considered myself in this way. But you see me, you see this thing about me and recognize this, so that makes me trust you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, so if I've confused anyone, it's kind of like similar to like a personality test. It's like an assessment you take and then it spits out some reflection about you that's in an easy to understand, easy to read way. So like my idea would be like a money personality assessment where I have you answer a bunch of questions like, how do you feel when it's payday? How do you feel when you run out of money? How do you feel when you see something you want but you can't afford it, right? You answer all these questions on a scale and then it spits out, oh, you're a frugal spender or you're a, you know, whatever. But I'd have to come up with what those archetypes are to actually make it meaningful. And I feel like there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that to like, I give someone an identity if they're going to take it that way, where I just want to use it as a tool to help guide you.
Yeah. So I use mine multi-purpose. The one I had on my website was like, where are you in your branding journey?
Yeah.
And so I would work with like small businesses and people that were like literally just had an idea.
Yeah.
People that were further along, but there's a big emotional journey with that. Like, I'm really anxious about this. I'm excited. You know, where's your budget? And so I would find that like a lot of people were brand new. They didn't need a lot.
Yeah.
And so that helped align them with a certain type of service. Whereas people who were further along and were trying to grow their business maybe needed something more. And so that I used it as a segmentation tool to understand like, oh, I'm attracting these, you know, people that are here, or this person is like better aligned with this service. But it also helped them understand where they sit in this timeline.
Yeah.
I think of, oh, okay, I'm not there yet, but I'm right here.
Yeah.
And here's the next logical step.
Yeah. I was gonna give my response was gonna give away my answer, so maybe we should just do 20 cents.
20 cents.
Okay,
yeah.
20 cents.
All right.
20 cents is the segment of the show where both Lizzy and myself, Lissa, each get 60 seconds to give our 2 cents on today's topic, whether it's a net positive or a net negative for personality tests. Where does 20 cents come from?
Because y'all get the opinion of 2 dimes.
2 dimes. All right, Liz, you're up first. I feel like this is going to be a short one.
Yeah.
At this moment in time for you, are personality tests worth it?
Okay. You know what's funny? I am generally the person that does not want to be put in a box.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do what everyone else does. So it's really interesting that I enjoy these so much. But yeah, I already showed my hand. I am net positive. I love learning about myself and understanding how I present the world, understanding myself better. And I see value in these, even if it's not prescriptive. And I enjoy the experience of it. So I'm big on personality tests. Net positive.
Net positive.
Yeah, no surprise there.
No surprise.
All right, I don't know what you're going to say.
Okay, so going into the episode, I was about 50-50. Not because I don't like them. I enjoy them as well. Maybe primarily because the latest one I took, the Strengths Finder, I didn't get a lot out of. And then I'm like, dang, people pay a lot of money for this stuff. So I was kind of 50-50. I think after this discussion, I lean towards net positive.
Okay.
Because you made some key points about like what they can be used for. And I think they're a tool. Like I think if you if you rely on them to tell you about you because you don't have a sense of self, I think that's not so great. Maybe you should do some other soul searching. But if you're using it as a means to reflect back and to see another person or system's perception of you, and you're ready and willing to welcome that, then I think that makes you actually a stronger person, right? Because you can look at it, you can try to look at yourself from an objective point of view, from someone else's supposedly objective point of view.
Yeah, all subjective, but that one.
It's subjective, but like another, like person's point of view. Anyway, so that's where I land. Net positive.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised, yeah.
I don't think I'll go out of my way to pay for them unless I think it's a really legit one or if it's really backed by research or from a reputable source.
I don't think I'd pay for them.
Yeah.
But I do find myself like every once in a while I'll in my email see the results and I look back and I'm like, oh,
interesting.
It's like a recurring, not regularly, but like a theme for me in my life.
Next time I do one, that's one of the ones they use a lot in corporate. I'm going to make a concerted effort to use that to my advantage to build my business or to do something in my life, use that actual strength or whatever. I'm
so curious. You've changed and if just on every level so much in the past 5 years. I'd be very curious to see how it would be different.
Yeah.
Now that you found different balance, your priorities have shifted. Yeah. Would you even be the same?
On which one?
On the Strengths Finder, for example.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Interesting. We'll have to see. Well, this is what we think right now at this moment in time, but no one can make that decision but you. What do you think? Are personality tests worth it?
Hit us up. Let us know what you think. DM us on Instagram at NetNetPodcast or email us at hi@netnetpodcast.com. And if you want to follow us individually, here's where you can find us.
I'm at Wealth for Women of Color on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram.
And I'm at live_well_Lizzy on Instagram and TikTok.
All references, statistics, and resources mentioned can be found in our show notes. This podcast is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be constituted as financial advice. Remember to always do your own research, consult a professional as needed, and feel empowered to make your own damn decisions.